It's certainly a pleasure to be here. My name's Dr. Wayne Hammond, and I'm currently the CEO of Resiliency Initiatives. Um, I've been asked about this idea of strength-based parenting, how it's different from traditional parenting approaches. And as a parent, everything I'm going to talk to you today about, I have to actually practice myself. Um, but I did a shift in my thinking because more traditional parenting is really about trying to keep our kids safe and giving them the skills we think they're going to need to be successful in life. And so a lot of our focus with our kids is very much around managing their behavior and managing the way that they think in ways that we think they will need in order to be successful. What I found in my practice as a psychologist is that that's an unpredictable approach. I've worked with a lot of parents who have done an amazing job protecting their children. But at the end of the day, their children are at risk because the children haven't developed some of those essential qualities that we now know from the research are essential for them to move to an attitude of thriving in life as opposed to just surviving. And so I was moving in my thinking more to this idea of strength-based practice and what it had or what it meant for parenting. And what I have kind of come to a conclusion that is that our role as parents in strength-based parenting is more of a facilitating coaching role as opposed to managing behavior. I oftentimes tell people that my goal for my two boys is not that they will be successful in life. I'm actually interested in what character traits they developed. If they start to understand that they're of value, if they start to understand that they have amazing greatness, that they have the ability to change things, to influence, then they're going to be successful in life because they're going to draw upon those traits no matter what the circumstances are. So the essence of strength-based parenting is not trying to protect your children so they survive. The purpose of strength-based parenting is building those qualities into your children that they're going to thrive no matter where they are, no matter what challenge comes down the road. They're actually going to embrace that challenge in a way that they actually learn from it. They get better for it and those around them. So when I talk about strength-based parenting, I'm not so concerned about the children. I'm more concerned about our attitudes as parents because the way you see your children, the way you engage them, the way you facilitate their understanding of their greatness and to what degree you've empowered them are going to be those four critical steps that you need to look at. And what I mean by perception or how we see our children, if you see them at risk, you're going to respond that way. You see them doing something, you're actually going to step in and actually take control and take that opportunity away from them around how they might learn. If you see them at potential, you're actually going to take a very different approach. You're actually going to step back. You're actually going to look for those opportunities when your children make smart risks or choices around that. And then you're going to talk to them later about how they did that, why you're proud of them, why you're celebrating that success, and what kind of effort it took on their behalf in order to do that in a successful way. And what you've really done is you started to write the neural pathways in their thinking that actually is going to prepare them for their teenage years and their adult years. So strength-based parenting is not about short-term solutions. It's really about setting a pattern of way of thinking and developing in your children that they're actually going to carry forward in very positive ways and then into their adult years. So I'm actually interested in about what my child's going to be like as an adult in the future. So I oftentimes talk to parents and say, don't worry about what they're going to be, worry about what they're becoming. Because if you have a sense that they're learning about their strengths, their gifts and their abilities, and they're able to draw upon it in constructive ways as you support them, you're going to find that they're going to carry that pattern right through life. As a psychologist, I always found it a bit of a challenge as to what next step I would sort of take parents to. I could send them to a book to read, or I could send them to a course on parenting. And what I have found is that the more that a family comes together and works together, the greater the success will be. So it's not about parenting unto our children, it's about parenting with our children. So when I came across Terry and this tool, Me and the Tree, I was really quite excited because there was a couple of things that jumped out at me. One is that it absolutely engages children. And that's oftentimes a pretty good starting point. A lot of children are not going to come to a family session at the supper table knowing they're going to get lectured. But if you actually ask them to engage in a game, they're there. They understand it, they know how to engage it. oftentimes it's the parents that are catching up. And so it's sort of neat to see maybe sometimes the children taking the lead on inviting the parents into an interaction. The other thing I really liked about Me and the Tree is that it was an opportunity to for the whole family to be engaged. And so it creates the opportunity for people to come and bring their own personality to it and actually interact through the third person. That's really important to me because oftentimes we're much more open to talking about things that are challenging through a third person. And what I mean by a third person is that every family member creates an avatar. This avatar actually takes on its own life and you talk through the avatar. Oftentimes conversations in families are difficult when you're talking one-to-one because we put up our defense mechanisms. But when parents have an avatar and a child has an avatar, it creates a whole new way of communicating that's much more freeing and much more effective. The other thing I really liked about Me and the Tree was the idea that there was a number of strategies and tools that really sort of supported parents learning what it means to communicate to their children and vice versa, that children can actually talk to their parents in ways that are different than your normal conversations. And so what it really does is it starts to lay this basis for ways for families to connect, but it's purposeful. It's not just to have fun. It's actually a strategy that if repeated over and over again, you're going to start developing patterns. You're going to start developing ways of thinking about each other that's more about believing in each other, feeling safe, feeling validated, feeling confident, and that this actually starts to become a platform for the family journey. Within it, everybody has their own journey, which is really quite exciting, and you get to share it. But ultimately, it's about the family journey and the changing roles as children go from their younger years to their middle years to their teenage years. And Me and the Tree facilitates that journey. So it's not just a tool or a game, it actually really solidifies what we know in research to be some of the crucial elements of what it means to have a thriving family. Like one of the tools that Me and the Tree kind of builds most of its model around is this concept of the family huddle. Now in traditional psychology, if working with parents, we would be talking about you need to have a conversation on Friday night after supper. And you should do that on a regular basis. And what we're really trying to ask the family is get together, have an opportunity to talk to each other, listen to each other, because when children feel heard, they validate what you want. It's one of the crucial aspects of parenting is that if your children feel valued, they actually value what you want to offer. Well, the huddle is really that concept, only it does it in a way that kids don't feel like they're being lectured, and they don't feel like they're actually going to be challenged in ways that doesn't make sense for them. They actually have a role in that huddle, and they actually participate as almost an equal partner in the conversation, which creates a very different dynamic that's very positive for families. So therefore, it's actually a way to start that process that many families struggle with. What does it mean to have family time? What does it mean to create an environment where we feel safe to talk about things? Where we have an opportunity to ask for permission or suggestions or resources as a family. The family huddle creates that for it. And for families that are under the stress of time, under the stress of maybe we didn't do that as a family, so I don't know how to do it, the huddle creates a natural opportunity for families to participate in that essential quality that all families need. You know, sometimes when I'm working with families, I'll hear them say, yeah, but we already do these things. Oftentimes a clarifying issue for them is when I ask them, do you feel like your children are drawing closer to you as a result of it? Do you feel like you have a greater insight to your children? Do you feel like your children are learning to have conversations to you outside those strategies? Because ultimately the tool that you want to draw upon not only becomes a way to practice, but you see the traits that you want in your children outside that dynamic, because you want it to become a lifestyle, not just a Friday night session where you only have that conversation. You want it to generalize into the way you have relationship with your children. And the huddle, I believe, is a starting point that really helps people to practice what it means so that they become comfortable with it, and that the questions that are suggested are actually very purposeful questions, because the concept of the huddle is not to put your kid under a microscope and examine them. It's actually to create a way of communicating. It's a way to sort of open up dialogue, to hear things you may not have never heard about your child through other avenues. And ultimately what we want is for the huddle to become a way of life for your family. But that's your starting point. And oftentimes things like that take time. You need to practice it, you need to engage in it. And so in many ways, Me and the Tree is sort of like a roadmap. It starts you down the right path. There might be different avenues you branch off, but ultimately you want to get to your destination. And the Me and the Tree creates a number of ways that you can get to your destination in very creative, engaging ways. So the journey is not so much the destination, it's the journey itself. And so Me and the Tree creates a very creative and a variety of strategies that allow you to experience the journey, because you'll get to the destination if the process is right. A common question I get from many parents is this idea of, how come my child is so entitled, or they don't seem to accept responsibility for things that I think they should. An example of what Me and the Tree does is it has a section on my responsibilities. And you could look at it in the traditional thing that you should do your chores and we will pay you for it concept. But I believe what we're trying to do with the Me and the Tree is to teach kids that you're part of something bigger and that you have a role. And so my responsibilities isn't seen so much as a chore, but a way that you can learn what it means to give back, what it means to be part of something good. And then that becomes a trait that I believe children carry forward into their adult years. Research is really quite clear that if you don't teach your children what it means to give to others and to participate, that they actually won't engage in those activities as an adult if you don't really practice that before age 12. And so you really, if you don't set those patterns, you really place your child in an awkward situation as they move to adulthood because they haven't learned that concept. If you actually want to deal with entitlement, teach kids how to give. That's probably one of the most important interventions around addressing that sense of entitlement in children.